You are listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I am your host, Celine Yeager. Each week, I bring you advice from athletes, scientists, researchers, and other experts to help you feel and perform your best, no matter what your hormones are doing. This show is a production of Live Feisty Media. Hello, strong, feisty women. I hope you all are well. So, first off, it was super fun meeting a few of you and signing some books at the PA Gravel Festival in the Pennsylvania Wilds last week. What a great, great, great time. I mean, of course, the weather was perfect. That always helps. But wow, so many women and such fun riding. It really just warmed my heart. So thanks to everybody who came up and said they liked the podcast and even brought a couple books. That just always, meeting you in the wild is always just the best for me. So thanks again. I also recently did it was actually my first menopause in the workplace presentation at a local law firm. And that was very cool too. It was cool to see all this work really paying off. And menopause finally coming out of the shadows and into the daylight, where we can all just talk about it as the natural part of life that it is. So, thank you for having me, and we really hope to do more of these because it was a really great time. I also very much look forward to seeing a bunch of you in Albuquerque in November. If you have not checked it out yet, I'm helping to host a 40 plus, a feisty 40 plus strong retreat from November 14th through the 16th at Cassie Neiman's facility in New Mexico. And Cassie is our resident strength coach, barbell coach, lifting heavy shit coach. She is just the best. So we're going to have a 2.5 day lifting retreat where you get hands-on coaching, expert insight from Cassie, and just real connection with a community of like-minded feisty women. We'll be lifting heavy shit, having a blast. I will put a link in the show notes if you want to join me. We have a few slots open and expect them to fill. So check that out if you want to come out and learn how to lift heavy and have fun with some like-minded women. All right. Speaking of like-minded women, so this week I have a great conversation for you with Kim Beckinsale and Alina McMaster from the Mountain Designs Wild Women Adventure Team. Last year, Kim and Alina, who are both 56, competed with their teammates Cass Kimlin and Del Lloyd, who are both over 40, and became the first all-female team to win the 450-kilometer Legend Expedition race in Australia's Great Ocean Road in 73 hours, 9 minutes, and 27 seconds, while navigating only by map and compass with just about no sleep, about 5 hours total. So we talk all about how they pulled it off, what's next, and how midlife and menopause have shaped their training and their racing and their view of aging itself. It was a really fun chat. I know you will enjoy this one. So the team also, they are currently, right now, at Expedition Canada, where they are covering more than 600 kilometers of trekking, trail running, mountain biking, rafting, and all the other things that go into these adventure races. So I will put a link to that in the show notes so you can follow along. All right, before we get to it, give us a follow at Feisty Menopause on Instagram and Facebook. Head into those show notes and sign up for my free weekly Feisty 40 Plus newsletter. And thank you as always for those 5-star ratings and really nice reviews that continue to come in. This week is our 5-year anniversary of this show, my friends, and I would not be here without every single one of you. If you like the show, do me a favor, share it with a friend, share it with a coworker. It's the number one way we continue to grow. And I always forget to mention as well that if you are the kind of person who likes to watch your podcasts, we also are on YouTube. So you can check that out and subscribe at Feisty Menopause on the YouTube platform. Very quickly, finally, thank you, Previnex, for your long time, almost from the very beginning, support. Whenever I get one of these amazing reviews, I have to share it. Jessica says, I am so grateful for Joint Health Plus. As a certified fitness professional and still extremely active competitive amateur athlete, I was getting discouraged with an increase in pain simply kneeling down or bending to the floor and getting back up while assisting clients, athletes, or in my own training. Once deciding to give this product a try, I was floored when I finally noticed I was not bracing in anticipation of pain when I had to kneel down, not wincing in discomfort upon standing. Thank you, Previnex. Indeed. I couldn't have said it better myself. All right, enough of me. Let's have a few words about those awesome sponsors and get on with the show. Okay, Kim, Elena, I'm glad that we made this work. I know that time zones are hard and you're over there on the other side, on the other hemisphere, really. But I just want to say before we do anything right out of the gate, congratulations, and thank you for what you're doing. I have done minor league adventure races, and what always sort of bothered me is it felt like I was checking a box of mandatory equipment. Like they need a woman. Oh, we need a woman. You're a woman. You do this stuff. Come on. And what you have done with your teammates Dell and Cass to freaking win the legend race feels very important to me. So I just wanted to say thank you and congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it sounds like you didn't necessarily expect to come out victorious. Can you talk to me, either of you, we can take turns here, about how you decided that a four-woman team was the way to go and how you won?
Okay, well, I'll start off. We, Alina and I and Cass actually started racing as an all-women's team back in about 2017. And what we wanted to do was just complete an expedition race as an all-women's team. So both Alina and I had raced um, in adventure racing in mixed teams. And I suppose the perception for me, certainly due to my age, was, I've had enough of racing with, at this level, it's a bit too hard. We go too fast. I just want to enjoy it. And the other thing was to be able to have more involvement in every aspect of racing, which was, navigating and not feeling like you're just the person, that is struggling to keep up a lot of the time. So that was my passion in getting into it. And so when we started racing with the Wild Women, it was just for that reason, to see if we could do an expedition race and finish one, and complete 100% of the course. So for Cass and Elena and myself, like that was back in about 2017.
Hmm.
And then over the next period of time, we've done some other expedition races, and and shorter ones as well, and just continue to try and be the best we can be.
Do you have thoughts there, Elena?
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree. Like I did a lot of adventure racing back in the early 2000s.
When it was
Um,
really big, taking off at
when
the
it,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
when it was really big. And I was a girl in a mixed team, and we were one of the good teams internationally. And look, I loved it. I loved my team. One of them was my husband. So that's, there's not that many that husband and wives that can do that. So I did love that, and I love my team, but um, I never felt in my team I was particularly a piece of mandatory equipment, but I
That's good.
saw it a lot in a lot of other teams. Like I
Yeah.
saw it a lot, and the other guys would actually say, "Oh, you're just a bit of mandatory equipment," like
Mm.
it was very obvious. Um, and I never liked that, but my team wasn't like that. So I was very lucky, and I tended not to race in other teams because I didn't like that about it. I just stuck with my team, whom, I loved. But interestingly, I didn't get to navigate because my husband Tom's an awesome navigator, and I wasn't as good. So that wasn't my role, but my role was I definitely had a particular role and to keep the team together and keep it going and all that sort of thing. But then I had kids and kind of stopped adventure racing for a long time, actually. And Kim's kind of got me back into it. And I love being in an all-female team. I just love it. I love like Kim said, like I get to navigate now with Kim, and I just love it. It makes it so much more interesting. And I just, like we try and do well, but that's not I don't know. I don't feel like we all try to do our best. And it's not like we sit around having a picnic or anything. We're all trying to move fast and do our absolute best. But other than that, our goal is not necessarily to win. It's just to have fun and do our best.
And your best was a win this past
It was. It was
at this particular race. So how did that play out?
Yeah, well, in the legend race, we had done the first round of that, and we did very well. And I think going into the next round of the race, it probably, I'll clarify, it wasn't the biggest race in the world, but it was part of the Adventure Racing World Series. And once you get to the start line for any race, that's part of your challenge, is just getting your actual full team, to the start line to then start. And I suppose, we had early on our little bits of sickness, and somehow we overrode that and battled on against all of the other teams to the point where we're in front now. And the crux of that race was getting to we had to finish with a long trek. I think it was about 40K, and then a 2 to 3 hour paddle, and then another trek the same distance. And so we came into that final paddle ahead, and it, for some reason, where the paddle was, they'd drained all the water. The bar had been dredged, so all the water flowed out of the waterway that we were paddling in, and it just turned to mud. And so instead of going, this is impossible, we just, upstrengthed ourselves somehow, and just
Were you
dragged our
portaging?
boats.
Did you walk it?
Portage, yeah, through mud that was up to our waists. And then the rules of that particular leg, where you had to take your boat to within 25 meters of the checkpoint. So you couldn't just leave your boat on the side of the mud. You had to drag it. So Alina and I, just got the straps on the front of the dragged and dragged and dragged. And Cass and Dell were probably like, oh my God, what are we doing? And Alina and I have gone, well, we've done this before. We've just got to do it. And I'm a real stickler for the rules. And we just both thought, no one else is going to do this. Like, they're just going to leave their boats here. So I had the GoPro out, and we're videoing us dragging our boat. And we got the first one that was really hard, and then it got dark. And then we were paddling in the mud, in the dark, and still trying to find checkpoints. And it was so hard. And we managed to get them all, and we got back to the TA. And we were transitioning to do the final run. We were still in front. And when we got to that point, the guys' team that we were sort of playing, leapfrog with, they turned up, and we thought, oh, okay. I didn't think they'd got all the checkpoints, and they hadn't. So they ditched 2 of the major checkpoints, which means that we were then ahead. And then we just had to stay, within that time, whatever their penalty was going to be, stay ahead of them to win the race.
How long did that take you? The mud, just the mud part.
The mud, I think the paddle ended up taking about, the whole paddle was meant to be a 2.5 hour paddle. I think the whole thing took us about 4 or 5 hours. So it just went way longer than what was expected.
Yeah, we did it. And the funny thing was, like what Kim said, Kim is a stickler for the rules. She really keeps us in there. So we had to take these bloody kayaks to within 25 meters of this checkpoint. And I don't know, but I think Kim and I both are a bit similar. Like when it gets tough, I actually thrive. I love it when it gets tough and you just forget about that you're tired and sleepy and the adrenaline starts rushing and it's that experience. Like, the guys that didn't do it, they were like, oh, this is too hard. We can't do this. Whereas that never crossed our minds that we couldn't do it. I mean, maybe it's not experience. Maybe we're just dumb. I don't know. But, we never thought twice about not trying to get the checkpoints.
Nice. And were you still you'd sort of glazed over. You were both sick at the start? Were you still what were you dealing with there? Were you both sick?
Oh, I
Yeah,
I
Alina,
get
you start.
seasick.
You what?
But I get seasick,
Oh,
and
I do too.
the first leg was a sea kayak.
Oh, oh boy, yeah.
And
Is
it
that why
was,
you vomited too?
yeah, so I was just in the back of the boat or front. I can't even remember where I was. And, it's quite typical for me. I will just paddle along vomiting in sea leg sections. And it just takes a little while to, when you get out of the boat, it doesn't stop straight away. Um,
I feel you.
so I'm used to it. It's not nice, but, I'm used to it. It just means you can't really, when you start running again, you can't run that fast. You just feel really gross.
Yeah, and it takes a while to get food back into your system, right? To
Yeah.
sort of settle it
Yeah.
down.
But nothing serious. Kim, on the other hand, um, we're still not quite sure why you sort of started feeling sick too. Just on a bike leg. And she was just
Yeah.
feeling sick. And eventually, when Kim says, I've got to stop, something's not quite right. So we were like, okay. And I said, okay, let's just stop for 45 minutes. We'll have a
Hmm.
sleep. We'll have a real rest and see what happens. And, so we all laid down. And then, I don't know, about 20 minutes into it, Kim just got up and just spewed everywhere, like this full on, wrenching spew. Um, and yeah, we don't really know why. Um, and then we lay there for a bit longer, and then you said, okay, let's keep going. I'm sort of
Let's go.
starting to feel a bit better.
Were you feeling better then, Kim, after that? Or did you just manage?
I felt really tired and weak at that point, but I felt okay to go on. So, I was probably the main navigator at that point. So Cass was probably had the second lot of maps. So then Alina took the maps, and so we finished that leg, got into the TA, and we had a choice of either doing a ride or a trek. So we continued riding, and Alina and Cass did the navigation. Alina was in an amazing form and just navigated all around these mountain bike trails. And I just sat on the back and just concentrated on getting better
Yeah.
and didn't have to really do anything. And I think that's the bonus of um, having and developing a team where everyone can do everything. It wasn't an issue for me just to sit in the middle and back off because I had full confidence, in both Cass and Alina to be able to find their way. And I think for one of the things of being in an all female environment of teaching navigation and racing, I've always tried to say, do you want to navigate and encourage other people to have a go, whether it's in training or in the middle of a race, because these days we get two sets of maps. So it's quite, it's easy to do that. But yeah, I gradually got better. And I think by the time we finished that bike leg and came back in, I was sort of going, yep, I think I'm okay.
Tell us what a TA is.
So a TA is where you change from, say, mountain biking to trekking.
Transition area.
Transition.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And what are the sports for people who aren't familiar with these or haven't seen The Amazing Race or some of the stuff? What sports are usually entailed in one of your adventure racing?
So paddling,
Hmm.
whether it's kayaking on a river, an ocean, or whitewater. sometimes in different types of crafts. So there's a water paddling activity, trekking or running, and also mountain biking. So they're the main three disciplines. And then you've got other things that are added in from time to time, which can be anything from, some sort of rope work, climbing, abseiling, just archery, anything sort of adventurous. Yeah.
And is it all maps? Do you use any devices these days, or is it all map?
Yeah, all map and compass and no electronic devices at all.
Anything to add there, Elena? Thoughts on the sports?
Just for, I guess, people that don't really understand this is what we call an expedition race. So it's a team of 4 and you're all traveling together. It's not a relay style, and you're all traveling together. And this particular race took us 4 days, I think. And what did we have? 6 hours sleep, 7 hours sleep or something in the whole of the 4 days. So you're going night and day, and you decide when you need to sleep. You go to transition areas where you've got pre-packed boxes that have your gear for the next leg.
That you have packed.
You have packed that
Yep.
prior, and the organisers just dump it at a location. And once you find that location, you can resupply, get some new food, change. Obviously, if you're going into a bike, your bike would be there. But your bike is in a box and you have to put your bike together. Mm-hmm. So that can get a bit kind of tricky when you start getting a bit tired and you put the back wheel on the front and the front wheel on the back and then wonder why it's not working. So yeah, there's a lot of, it's not just about, physical pursuits. There's a lot of teamwork in it. There's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of being able to cope with not, feeling tired or just feeling confused and still being able to function. Yeah.
Is there anything that's unique about the chemistry of an all-women's team, of an all-female team?
I think there doesn't seem to be a need to maybe show a dominance. And I'm not sure whether that's, sometimes you can get when you're racing with males, especially when there's other teams around, it's about trying to show that you're the most strongest and powerful. And I don't think it's a deliberate thing. I think it's just maybe and it's not all males, but if you sort of tend to generalize, that's something that's different in a women's team. And I think we just tend to nurture each other a bit more and check that you're okay. And I think the communication around that from the start to the finish is just, I think it's more important. It's at a higher level in terms of, what your day-to-day job is in the middle of an event.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it's a lot more nurturing. And I also again, this is, globalizing, which isn't necessarily true, but in a female team, there tends to be less ego. So, it's okay to be helped and it's okay to help somebody else. Whereas sometimes when you're racing with guys, I have had in a team that wasn't my own, my main team when I was younger, they would tow me at the start and I would tow them at the finish, and they didn't care, and that was fine because I always got stronger at the finish. And that's the thing with male teams, they always start so fast and you are just like, am I going to be able to cope, but then it goes on and they all calm down and then they get slow and you have to pull them along. But a lot of the times it's really hard to get a male to accept your help.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because it helps. You see this all the time. We're really good in our girls' team of keeping together. And it's much better for someone like Kim often tows me on a bike because the bike is kind of my weakest leg. Although I'm working on it, Kim. And that's fine, because as a team, you travel faster together. And we were doing another race, and it was really interesting. We were all just sort of plodding up this hill, and this one team, two people would come past us because they were much faster, break the 100-meter rule, go way up ahead and then stop. And then we'd pass them, and the other two team members or other one team member was still way behind even us, and they were doing this leapfrogging thing.
Like, what are you accomplishing?
And just not accomplish. And then anyway, they saw us, and eventually I think they kind of worked it out. And then they actually all came past us because they started towing and helping their other team member. And I was like, yay, good on you. You learned something.
So an interesting sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but sometimes in a long race, the female does get stronger,
Mm-hmm.
And that's, something that we're tough for a long time.
Yes, we are. And you're seeing that in ultra races of all kinds, right? You're seeing that women have like really great endurance, and that's just a quality.
Mm.
So an interesting wrinkle in this particular chapter was that because the setup of venture racing is defined by mixed teams, so as a single sex team, you aren't eligible to win prizes or the entry to the world championships. Was that on your mind at all going into this?
I think ever since we've been racing as an all-female team, whenever you enter a race, you're not entering, there's actually a category called Premier Mixed, and you're not entering that. And, it's just, and I suppose because we've never even conceived that you're going to probably win an event outright, that it wasn't really a factor that you ever worried about. And it's not until you sort of finish a race and you are on top and everyone else starts going, oh, well, you're going to win, you're going to win that entry. And we go, well, no, we're not. So, we were sort of definitely aware that we weren't eligible, but it didn't mean that, someone might have gone, oh, well, you've done really well. We can have another prize or something, but that wasn't to be the case. And so I suppose that just opened up a can of worms in terms of the sport. And we have never set out to undermine or devalue the way that the sport has grown and developed with the mixed team. But one thing that has definitely changed is the wording of what now the team is must have. It actually, the rules used to state that it was they had to have one female in the team, whereas they've reworded it now to say of mixed gender, meaning there has to be, not just making it you have to have one female. It's basically you have to have a combination of males and females, which is a much fairer way to explain it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't stop us from trying to finish ahead of every other team that we can possibly try to beat out there.
Is your goal to help more women get into the sport?
Yes, absolutely. My partner and I here at Noosa, we have a small coaching business that we started out for both males and females, just to coach adventure racing, because people, used to think it was too hard. And then we started up a female adventure race, an all-women's adventure race. And my partner, Jen, always liked racing in women's teams, and I raced in mixed. And I suppose we've just then continued that again, and just encouraging more women to feel like they can have all the skills to do anything in any team. So whether they race in an all-female environment or a mixed team environment, or if there's males training with us, that we've got people that can just do all the parts of what a good adventure racing team needs. And for some reason, women have always maybe just don't think that they're strong enough sometimes, and they don't think that they can navigate, and they don't think that they can do things. And it's often just a misconception, I think.
Elena, you were going to say something?
Um, I mean, like Jan said, we didn't go into it thinking we were going to win, and we knew we were an all-female team, and the Premier Mixed team is the Premier Mixed team. But there's also, there's all male teams as well that race,
Okay.
and if they win, they can't get the prize
Right.
either.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Kim, I wanted to explore. I was reading a bit in my research, and I found the really great quote I liked, where you were talking about you found adventure racing in your 30s after you were being told you were too old to attract sponsorships for triathlons, like in your 30s. So now you are a world champion at 56. What, talk to me a bit about that. Like, how do you feel that being in your 50s gives you any sort of edge, or how is it different to be racing now?
I think it just must be a combination of mental strength and toughness and the experience that you've got. When I was young and in triathlon, there was going through a big change in the sport from um, that independent style of racing where it was swim, bike, run to changing to a drafting environment.
Mm.
And so, the sport sort of changed. And I was, as I was in my early 30s, and all of the sponsorship and funding and everything was being channeled into junior elite, or young people that were good swimmers. And it didn't matter about the bike. And whereas I always felt I was a runner and used to finish with a reasonable strong run. But in the sport, my strength was to do the whole thing. It was to be a good swimmer, a good bike rider, transition well. And to me, that was the concept of being a good triathlete. It wasn't just about, you know, being able to swim well and run well. And I suppose I went on to do some coaching in triathlon as well. But I think as a female, you maybe whether it was some of what you were told from people in terms of, you're too old, you're whatever. Some of it was, you know, not a direct comment as you're too old, but, oh, you're that old. Oh, it was that, implied, oh, you're not going to, how long are you going to be able to keep going for? And, and I think for me going into the sport quite late, that, the future of being able to continue to do really well just didn't seem like there was one. And I suppose I just started to try lots of different things, and I'd always loved doing, adventurous things. And prior to triathlon, I did a bit of mountain running. And once I'd started doing triathlon, you couldn't do all the mountain running anymore because you might hurt yourself. So to be able to be, fast. So I think moving forward, it was just about my, like just finding things to do to keep going, and never not trying to still be the best you could be, no matter what you were being told or what was out in front. Yeah.
Elena, how has it changed for you over time? You've been in the sport a long time.
Yeah, so I'm 56 as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I don't feel like I'm that. And I guess, it's just I just feel more experienced, like obviously you have to do things a little bit different. And I'm older and wiser. So, I don't train the same as I used to train, for example.
Can you give some specifics of that? I am 56 as well. So,
look at us go.
yeah.
Well, I guess, I've also got kids and a family and just, more commitments, I guess, in that respect than when I was, in my 20s and 30s. So I have less time. But, I think back at some of the training that Tom and I used to do, after work, we'd roller ski for, 2 hours off to some Pilates class in the middle of nowhere, do the Pilates class, and then roller ski and run, because half of it was on dirt anyway. So you'd have to run for a couple of hours as well. And we'd do something, it'd go for hours and hours. And then you'd have dinner at 10 o'clock or something, and then go to bed, like I have to go to bed a lot earlier now, 9:30, I'm in bed, that's it. So, there's different things like that, but I guess I've got still that muscle memory from all those crazy things that I used to do back then. So, had I not done that, I just by, maintaining it now, I can do, a lot less. I'll still go out for 3 or 4 hours, but not, that's a once a week sort of thing.
Yeah. Kim, how's your
Yeah,
training
so
evolved?
definitely less total time in a week. I tend to use my weekends to do longer stuff. I'm working I'm a phys ed teacher, and even though I'm teaching a practical based sport, a lot of that doesn't involve, doing their, physical work. So my training sessions are shorter. So I tend to do some long stuff on the weekend, try and pack a few disciplines together, and then do some, if I'm doing, specialized training session where I've got an event coming up and I want to just sort of be a bit more fine-tuned, definitely a little bit of shorter, high-intensity work. But the old long, really hard, really long, flog yourself things, I save that for races now.
Yeah.
And I think it's a smart way, because I was a great, my triathlon days, I was such a good trainer. And I think I'd actually race tired most of the time. I just didn't have that motivation to, get that final gear to get you going. Whereas now I think sometimes that just comes out and you go, oh, where did that come from? And I think it's just a way of saving that little bit that you've got that's stored within from years of training. It comes out every now and again.
Do either of you do strength training at this point? Is that part of your repertoire?
I don't, and I keep saying I'm going to start. And my latest is I'm starting next week.
I'll hold you to it.
Because I know it's really important. I do it really randomly, like if I'm traveling and I'm staying somewhere with a gym, I'll go and do it. And then I'll do sometimes, but not regularly enough, just body weight stuff in the backyard, chin-ups and push-ups and squats without a weight and things like that. But I know it's really important. I just don't like it that much. I find it really hard to go. I'd much rather go for a run. And every time I say I'm going to go to the gym, I'll go, oh, it's probably more efficient if I just go for a little run. So yeah. But next week I'll report in.
All right. Kim, do you do any resistance training?
Look, I'm probably a little bit haphazard as well. At school, I teach Cert 3 fitness, which is, gym instruction. And so I'm usually in the gym once a week, but I'm usually not sort of very planned sessions, just being a fill-in client for a student, and using just some weights. But again, as one of the things, definitely, I think, over 50, your muscle mass starts to go. And I think for the last few years, I've managed to be able to deal with that by doing sort of sport-specific strength stuff with riding up hills and paddling in, really hard, windy conditions that requires strength. But now I feel definitely that I got to get the weights out. And I've got a few little weights here at home that I use a bit, but not enough. So with Alina, tick next week.
All right. Hold your vote to it. Well, that kind of segues because, you were saying sort of after 50, and there's a thing that happens when we sort of go into the midlife and menopause transition, with the hormonal shift doesn't help with the muscle and maintaining strength either. So I am curious if either of you have where you are in your menopause journey and if you've had to navigate any of the things that we talk about all the time on the show, whether it's managing your thermal regulation or hot flashes or sleep issues. I mean, I guess if you can't sleep, that's okay because you guys don't sleep during your events, but it's not good for training. Have you had to, for both of you, this question is like what you've had to navigate in this part of your life?
I find definitely racing, I've felt hotter.
Mm,
And maybe when I reflect back on my not being well in the legend race and I got sick, it might have been that I overheated. I cooked myself earlier in the day, even though it wasn't super hot. I
yeah,
probably have been wearing, as I've got older, my skin is not as strong. So, once I'd just bush bash through all this stuff and I'd get cut to pieces and I wouldn't care because I'd heal, but now I don't. So I've got to cover up. But then I find I can't cover up because I just get too hot.
mm,
So that's a real issue for me because I love being really energetic and strong in the bush, but it's just too hot to wear the protection in terms of the clothing. Um, and but I've tended to, I think you just sort of slow down a bit. And I've always not over, I don't, I'm not a big person that sweats a lot.
yeah.
So even though I'm feeling hot, I seem to be able to manage that with, you know, but I probably just do need to drink more or just, I think you just, maybe we can't even go at the intensity
Right.
that would deplete you totally. As a female of our age, you're not being able to sprint and where you are sort of using more energy and losing more, more sweat and all of that.
So I think I'm through it all, except that I have trouble sleeping. And um,
So you're
I
both
just,
post-menopause?
yeah, I think
Yeah, we're
so.
all okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I do have trouble sleeping, which is something I never used to have trouble
Hmm.
with. And I do love my sleep, despite doing these events where you don't sleep. People always actually ask me about that. Oh, how can you do it? I love my sleep. I'm like, yeah, I love my sleep too. I sleep 8 hours a night, I should say. And,
Yeah.
I like to go to bed early. I'm not a late night person at all, but it's, obviously when you're racing, it's different. But I did have the hot flashes going through. I don't think it really affected me. I didn't notice it in racing. There's too many other
Hmm.
things that are happening that I didn't notice about. Um, the one good thing is though that you don't have to worry about getting a period in a race. So that's quite nice.
Yeah. That is a nice key. I mean, one of the things that I ran into, it actually was one of the reasons I started the show. I ran into crazy anxiety. Like I'd be on my mountain bike on something I've done a million times and just freeze.
Yeah.
And those sort of kind of mood and fear episodes are related to hormonal fluctuations too. So I think it can just hit people in different ways, and not always obvious ways.
Yeah, I think retrospectively, looking back, I did go through a time where I was just, not so long ago, where I was just crying all the time, and I was very,
Yeah.
and I never put it, I guess, because we don't speak about it enough. I actually didn't know what was wrong, and I just thought, oh, I'm just, I had young kids, and because I had my kids quite old, um, so I had young kids, and I just sort of put it all down to that. But now looking back on that, I wonder if that was, like perimenopause type stuff. And
Yeah.
I or it probably was, but at the time I didn't realize. And I wished I had realized, because, it's sort of nice to have an explanation.
I hear that a lot. I hear that all the time. Like even if nothing changes, it's just nice to know like why you're suddenly filled with rage or why
Yeah.
you're crying. Yeah. Yeah, I can totally see that. Has your fueling evolved over the years? Either of you, how you fuel yourselves
For
nutritionally?
me, it definitely changed. So when I was younger, I was a cross country skier.
Hmm. Hmm.
I was on the national team for a while and, you know, competed internationally and stuff. And so I was with what we call the AIS, which is the Australian Institute of Sport, and following
I'm
all
familiar
their
with them.
dietary requirements at the time, which was very, very much into carbo loading. So carbohydrate loading, lots of carbohydrates. I was always a little bit on the chubby side and was all getting, you know, the finger pointed at me. You just need to get this off. And, you know, so I wasn't allowed to have any butter or fats. And I remember cooking with water, you know, frying things in water and, you know, but I could still eat as much bread as I wanted to.
Those were the days, right?
Those were
Like
the
no
days.
peanut butter, but you can have all the
The
sugar you
bread and
want.
honey that
Yeah.
you want. Yeah, just don't put any butter on it.
Dear
Um,
God, I remember those days.
so
Yeah.
I was doing that, and I know we'd go on long, you know, train because for cross country skiing, long back then as well, long training sessions were, you know, what we called long, slow distance. And I'd often bonk, which is, I don't know if people are familiar with that term, but it's
Oh
hitting
yeah.
the wall
Yep.
where you just feel like you can't go any further. And so that's how I was brought up on fueling yourself. And then, you know, after I finished all my competitive type stuff, I don't know what happened, but both Tom and I decided to try this more keto type diet that was coming out. And this is probably 10 years ago or so, and trying to, you know, eat more fats and eat less carbohydrates and change our energy systems over. And holy moly, for someone like me, I'm stubborn body and mind, and changing that system over was so hard. And I remember in the house we were at, our room was just up a flight of stairs, you know, maybe what, 10 stairs or something. I couldn't get up the stairs. I had to crawl up the stairs. I could not get any energy. I was going lactic going up one set of stairs. But now I it's really interesting, you know, like my weight dropped. I was eating a heap more fat, you know, my weight dropped. I can go out for hours without eating anything. Um, you know, it's really different. And sometimes I think back and think, if only I'd known now I mean, if only I'd known then what I know now, you know, what could I have done when I was younger?
So are you still following that general eating where you're eating mostly that, or has the pendulum swung at all?
No, so now I'm sort of in the middle.
Yeah, that's
No, and I'm all about trying to do variety in
yeah.
everything. So that's my thing now. So, but it was good to do that, to actually learn to switch
Yep.
my metabolism, to be able to use different sources. And now I feel like I can go in and out.
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of fasting. Now I don't do as much fasting. I still think it's important, but I think you can overdo it. And so now I just like to kind of switch in and out. And so I will still eat carbohydrates, but I won't go, you know, I don't just eat carbohydrates. I
Yeah.
will make sure that and I don't eat them all the time, you know, and I make sure that fat is not bad as long as it's good fats and,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah,
all
that
that
makes
sort of
sense.
thing.
Kim?
Yeah, so back in triathlon days, definitely in the carbo loading era, and I always struggled with it because I could never eat that much. You know, the 2 days out trying to force feed, nah, it just never worked for me anyway. So I definitely found going into adventure racing there, I definitely craved, you know, more protein and more fat. And in terms of nutrition and everything, and I've always kept up with reading a lot of stuff about it. I probably morphed into just more of that very well balanced approach, and I think I've kept and maintained that. I found now I don't eat as much, and I think for racing, the biggest thing is as my metabolism has dropped in my, you know, my daily needs have reduced when it's race time. I think sometimes it's just hard to keep that energy up. Whereas once I could just eat more and now I can't. So in a race to keep you going for 4 or 5 days, I definitely lose a lot of weight because I think my body just sort of, starts to eat itself in a way. Great weight loss technique if people are, if you need to lean down a bit, just go and do a 5-day adventure race. But yeah, for me, after the race, it's about then trying to spend the next month doing, eating a lot more protein and body fat and just getting yourself back to how you were before. And that's definitely been a big shift.
Yeah. What do you fuel yourselves on during what are your race day fuels? Or race multiple day fuels, I guess I should say.
Yeah, it's sort of hard because different when you're say paddling, you often don't get it's hard to eat. When
Yeah.
you're on the bike, it's hard to eat. When you're trekking, you can eat a lot more. So for me, I try and have things, like macadamia nuts, things that are high in protein and fat that are easy to eat and get down. But we also then you definitely need to have some of that pick me up stuff, which might be dried fruit and nuts, or it might be. I don't use gels or
Yeah.
anything like that, but I would eat like a natural snake just to give you a bit of a sugar hit if you're feeling your body's dropping down low. But definitely, I try and have not as much of that sweet stuff, but things that have got salt and fat in them. So I do have some chips and then we eat some dehydrated meals. Try and have at least one of those a day because that gives you, it's not perfect, but it gives you something that's a little bit more sustainable.
Yeah.
It's also
Um,
that after a while you don't want to eat sweet things.
Oh, I know.
You eat
Oh,
for
I get so
five
tired of
days
the
of,
sugar.
yeah, you're just like, oh, I can't stomach this
Hmm.
anymore. So you are looking for more savory things. I eat a lot of nuts in events.
Yeah.
Um, that's probably my main one, but sometimes that can get a bit dry. And so, you do have all your different kind of bars and things. And it's interesting because, people always say, oh, you got to train with the food that you race with. And I'm like, no way. There is no way I'm training with any of that crap. Like I just save it for for the races.
So what is on the horizon for the Wild Women?
well, our next big race is that we're going to go to Canada for the World Championships, so the adventure racing World Champs. And
When is that?
it's in Canada in late September. Yeah, so when we didn't get to qualify for the World Champs at the end of 24, we said, right, well, what other race would we love to do? And can't we all went, well, we'd love to go and race in Canada. So we're going to go and do that. And
Ex
then the legend race will be back on next year in February or March, early March. It's going around Australia, so it moves to South Australia next year.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to impart to our audience about adventure racing or any of this for an active audience who's in our demographic?
I think, one of the things that I've noticed, just like I looked, there's a local race, a 24-hour race or something coming up, and I looked at the team list, 48-hour race actually, and I was really surprised to see there's something like 4 or 5 all-female teams in it now. And that was something, there was, sometimes the token one female team. And I don't, token's probably the wrong word, but it's really
Yeah.
exciting
Mm.
to see that all of a sudden, and I like, I hope we've helped contribute to that. And I hope that Kim's training, she's done a lot for women in adventure racing. And I like, like I don't feel old, and I want people to see that, you don't have to be old. You don't have to act old. My kids think maybe they think I'm embarrassing. I don't know. I think they're probably proud of me. But they say you're a young mum. You're not old. You don't look like those other old, and I'm just like, yeah, you don't have to be old. You don't have to act old. And if you keep active, it's not that hard. I think the hard thing is if you stop. I really think that's the hard thing, and that it doesn't have to be extreme like what I'm doing. That's, I get that's even when I was young, that wasn't for everybody, it is pretty out there, but you can just be active. And I feel like even in my little community, I've inspired some people to start, just getting active and getting on their bikes and going to park run and just like, yeah, God, if she can do it, she's like 15 years older than me, then I can do it too,
Yep. 100%. Kim?
Yeah, again, it's just that don't use age as a barrier. Just keep doing things and look for new challenges and things that you haven't done before in your life. And if you think it's scary, find someone who knows a little bit more about it, ask their advice. And I think for women, I've always felt that we have to get quite skilled at something to feel comfortable doing it, and especially a lot of things that demand strength. And so instead of with mountain biking, you can't just power up a big hill and just guts it out. You've actually got to slow down, balance a bit better. So everything we do, we just need to do it differently. So finding the right people that can teach you how to learn something differently, you'll probably have a lot more fun in the process of learning how to do it. And then you feel like, oh, wow, I've done that. And I think that's what I love about keeping active and doing things as I've got older. I definitely do not see myself as the age that I am. And, I think I forget how, I still think I'm in my early 20s. I don't actually feel that much different, except I can see, a little bit happening. But yeah, I just love going out there and being active, and I think encouraging all women to just don't use age or gender as something to stop you from doing something, and yeah, have dreams, have goals, and go and start ticking them off.
Yeah, and
Excellent.
also don't let your lack of experience stop you either. An example was I've just started netball. I have no idea about netball.
What made you start netball?
So I've just finished my second season of it. So I just started last year. Um, I actually started because I felt that I wanted to show my two boys that you could go and do something without being good at it. Like it's okay. I kind of felt that, because I used to be, both Tom and I were cross-country skiers. I never thought of it that way. I never thought of myself as being good at necessarily things, but I was sort of looking back and they weren't trying new things. And I thought, oh, I wonder if it's because they have this impression that they have to be good at something. And so I thought, well, they always say you can't say, you've got to demonstrate. So someone asked me if I wanted to join a netball team, and I went, okay. I don't know anything about netball. I didn't know. And also the other thing was where I didn't know anybody. So I didn't know anybody there. And I wanted to show it doesn't matter. You don't have to know anyone. People are nice. I wanted to show that people are nice and people will support you. And it doesn't matter if you're not good, they'll still cheer you on. And so, yeah, that's why I started it. And it's fun. It's fun learning a new skill. And it's right. Nobody cares. Like no one cares when you drop the ball or, you run into the wrong area of the court and get called out for offside or whatever it is. I still don't know, and it still happens all the time. Or you start running with the ball and you're not meant to, and no one really cares. They all just go, "Oh, you silly," And I just wanted to show that it doesn't matter. Just have a go.
That's great advice, and we say it all the time. Just that is what you've nowhere to go but up when you start something new too, right? Like you've nowhere to, and it's rare to get to that place when you're in your 50s, right? And you've done the same sports. It's nice to take a little pivot and try something new and just have a different trajectory.
Yeah. And I mean, I know as you get older, you can go either two ways. You can go to where you don't really care anymore what people think. And I know when you're younger, you are a bit more aware of, what you think and how you look and what you say. And you do get to a point, I feel, where, you know what, I've got enough friends. I don't need any more friends. And I'm not going to be rude or anything, I'm
Right,
still
I get it.
But I don't have to say what you want me to say or do what you want me to do. I can just, be and do what I want to be. So sometimes I think that's the nice thing about getting older. And so you can use that to your advantage as well. And, I know though that some people may still not have that confidence as they get older. But, you still got to, and even when I went to my first netball game, I was still like nervous, and that's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine to be nervous, because I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what the people were going to be like. But, and so it's sort of okay to be nervous, but you just have to like get through that.
Yeah, I love that. We say it all the time. We recommend that people try new things and step out. And I agree that one of the benefits of this age is all of the things that you just said. Just not, stepping into yourself a little more and not being as concerned about what people are thinking, which is very often nothing. It's most of it's in your head.
Mm.
Well, I appreciate you both coming on, and I wish the Wild Women wild success for the rest of this year. And thanks again for sharing yourself and for being an example.
Thanks,
very
Elaine.
much.
It's been great talking. Thank you.
All right, that's our show. Come on back next week when I sit down with Lauren Tettenbaum to talk all about millennial menopause, which is the title of her new book. So come on back for that one. And until then, as always, stay feisty. You've been listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I'm your host, Celine Yeager. The show is edited and produced by the strong, talented, and amazing women at Live Feisty Media. Follow us on social media at Feisty Menopause, and please help us spread the word. Screenshot and share this episode on your social media channels with the tag @FeistyMenopause. Share the show with your friends, and please subscribe, like, review, and rate this show wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth and good reviews make it easier for other listeners to find. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay feisty.